Hello, everyone. Thank you so very much for the opportunity to be part of today's forum. It is truly an honor to be here with you all virtually. It's also a great privilege to be sharing the virtual stage with you, Michael. Southern New Hampshire University has collaborated often with the Entangled Group, and of course, we have had historically a wonderful relationship as well with Professor Christensen. Our university president, Paul LeBlanc, was great friends with Professor Christensen, and his body of work on disruptive innovation has informed several of our innovations at Southern New Hampshire University. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be sharing with you today. I'd like to start with introducing you to myself and telling you a little bit about the work that I do at Southern New Hampshire University. My name is Kat Flynn. I'm the Deputy Director of Learning Science at Southern New Hampshire University, or SNHU as we call it, Innovation Center. I'm very proud to be here representing SNHU, speaking to you about disruptive innovation in higher education. My talk today is going to focus on the work the department I'm part of, the Innovation Center, does to help orient our university to the needs of the future learner. Hence today's talk's focus on the world of work and learning in 2030. I am very lucky to have been at SNHU since 2014 and been with the university through a large period of its growth. It's been an incredible journey to see the university grow in the short amount of time I've been in there, considering its larger history since 1932. I began my career at SNHU designing online courses with faculty as an instructional designer at our global campus, at the time called the College of Online and Continuing Education. My next role at the university was working with a team to manage online learning quality across our course catalog. And these days at the SNHU Innovation Center, I work as a learning scientist, a researcher. My role focuses on how do people learn, how do they learn most effectively, and how can we as a university create learning experiences that help all learners achieve their full potential. As anyone at our university will tell you, we are driven by our mission of transforming lives through education. Our president, Paul LeBlanc, says that opportunity is evenly distributed, but oftentimes opportunity is not. We see innovation as an engine to expand access to education for our learners. Thinking about how can we connect those talented people out there to the opportunities they may not be able to access. And so built on the foundation of an existing internal consultancy unit within SNHU, the Innovation Center was formally established in January of 2019. So we're a very new group within the university, but we are here and we're ready to help the university meet the needs of the future learner. At SNHU, we take a very disciplined approach to innovation. Our thought is to blend creativity with strategy. As we work toward understanding how technology and how society impact the future of education, it changes how we understand how people learn and what we do to teach students. Innovation really challenges us to think beyond the norms of today in order to cultivate the practices of tomorrow. And innovation, as we think about it, is something that's really both a mindset and a method through which an organization remains competitive and relevant to the demands of the market. We're thinking that we innovate so that we may solve our learners' most difficult problems and imagine learning experiences in which some cases, like the technology, the processes, and the competencies themselves have really yet to be invented. So we've got to be future thinking in creating learning solutions for our learners. And to give you an idea how we do all this work at the Innovation Center to help position the university for the future learner, here's a quick visual showing how our team is organized. We produce innovative solutions with 4 components. concepts, process innovations, technology innovations, and competency innovations. As such, there are 4 units within our Innovation Center team. There's a group called the Sandbox, and they are responsible for generating, conceptualizing new ideas. There's a group called the Innovation Management Office. They're responsible for managing process innovations, emerging innovations. There's also a research and development group, SNHU Labs. That's the team that I'm part of within the Innovation Center, and we're responsible for testing new technology solutions. There are also teams dedicated throughout the university to incubating new concepts. The Innovation Center is led by our Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer, who reports to our President and CEO. And he is responsible for communicating, executing, and sustaining strategic projects. He also manages the corporate process of innovation, change management, and strategic planning at SNHU, in addition to directing all projects within the Innovation Center. And we at the Innovation Center are really established to be a resource and support system for our university leadership, faculty, and staff. We offer strategic intelligence and research and development, and our goal here is really to clarify problems for teams that they are experiencing and help work with them to develop solutions that work now as well as into the future. And while we have a dedicated innovation center at SNHU, I really want to emphasize that at Southern New Hampshire University, we believe every single person is an innovator. We are a service unit to others throughout SNHU, and our goal is to provide support to our innovators who work most closely with our students. And when I'm saying this, I want you to think about the advisors who spend time regularly interacting directly with our online learners. These are the people who know our learners best, and they know their individual struggles, and they cheer them on with their individual triumphs. Really, in order to understand the needs of the future learner and what disruptive innovations are going to best meet their needs, we've got to understand the challenges faced by the learner of today. So, what challenges do today's learners face? I think we all have some sense of this today, but it really does bear repeating. There are an incredible number of challenges our learners seek as they try to further their education. In addition to trying to earn a degree or a credential, they're working through a multitude of current forces, things like financial challenges, the looming threat of employment displacement due to automation, um, their perceived confidence in the education system, and they're also trying to retain some semblance of balance between their work life and their home life. And of course, there are any number of unexpected challenges life might throw their way. And the present moment is just but one layer of this. We also have to factor in the fact that today's barriers can either be helped or hindered by the forces and challenges presented by the future. So that brings us back to the future, so to speak. And you might recognize this quote from the earlier presentation by Dale Johnson, and it's absolutely worth repeating because it's a good one. The future is already here. It's just unevenly distributed. At this talk, I mentioned something about our team at the SNHU Innovation Center, focusing our work on the learner of 2030. Now, at this point, or you might have been wondering all along, why the year 2030? Why that particular year? And our thought here in choosing the year 2030 is that we don't want to be too close to the present day. Everyone has their own opinion on what 5 years, for example, from now will look like. A lot of people have a 5-year plan. Their values and beliefs might get in the way. And 5 years could go by just debating what the year 2025 would even look like. And then again, on the flip side, we don't want to be thinking too far out. Something like the year 2050 gets us into the realm of science fiction. We really have found in our work that looking at the year 2030 strikes the right balance for us. The conversations we can have are a lot richer, and we have access to folks who will be students in 2030. That current group of 9 to 10-year-olds, these are my coworkers' children. These are people that we know in the community already. All the technology that will factor into the mix is here out there in some way or another. It's just not everywhere yet. The future is here. It's just unevenly distributed. And of course, it's likely there won't be too many huge shifts in the policy landscape between now and 2030. Back in college, I spent a lot of time studying literature, immersing myself in that practice of critically reading books, deriving deeper meaning from poetry and novels. In a similar fashion, we can critically read the world of today for signals that indicate the innovations of tomorrow. So in the middle picture, right here in the middle, is a device called the Double. It's a telepresence robot, if you're not familiar with it, that entered the market back in 2013. Prior to 2013, a lot of signals indicating the development of this robot were there. There were things like iPads, Segways, Roombas, and video messaging, video conferencing in one way or another. They were just unevenly distributed. And these signals brought to bear an innovation that served an unmet need. The need for employees working remotely to connect physically, have a physical presence with their colleagues in the main office. Thanks to the convergence of these signals, now we can bring in colleagues from different locations to the main office and let them unnerve their coworkers a little bit by driving a robot through the office. And yet another example of distributed signals. Today's smartphone is built off the signals of yesterday. Looking at all these items that used to be loaded into a big knapsack, the watch, the credit card, the heavy wallet with the cash and the bulky cell phone and the bulky camera. Today, all these things have converged into a single small device that can be fit in the pocket, and for most of us really is like our third hand. Also, we have to think critically about signals from our young people, those who will be both our adult and more traditional 18 to 22-year-old learners in the year 2030, Generation Z and Generation Alpha. They're here today and they have a lot to say about what they expect for their future, what they expect out of their educational experiences. And as innovators and educators, we've got to listen to them and have their voices help us understand how can we create the right learning solutions for the future. Okay, so for to innovate educational solutions that put our learner, our present and our future learners at the center of a learning ecosystem, we've got to shift our thinking. Change is inevitable, even more so now than ever. At the Innovation Center, we're challenged to use futures thinking to put innovation into perspective. So I'll give you some examples of what I mean here. So thinking about what happens when organizations don't think differently, when they don't put their customer at the center of their ecosystem. Something like the example of Blockbuster. The streaming technology of Netflix itself did not kill Blockbuster. Charging people late fees for returning a video 2-3 days late did. It wasn't central to the life of that person to return a video on time. They got busy. And the company was not thinking about that life experience first. They're thinking about their policies first. Or the example of the music and recording industry and how iTunes overtook the traditional CD business, right? People only wanted people only wanted 1 or 2 out of 15 songs on an album. Forcing them to buy the whole thing just doesn't make sense. And the list goes on and on. And we've really got to understand that the technology itself is not the disruptor. Not being customer-centric, or in our case as a university, learner-centric, is the biggest threat out there to any organization. So the conversations we have with young people today about what they expect for college, what they expect for their future learning experiences is very different, right? Because these young people live in what we think of as a VUCA world. And VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. And this is the world, this is the landscape our learners live in now. And as innovators, as educators, as leaders, this is what we have to live and breathe too in order to best understand their future and put forth the right innovations to serve their needs. So one way that we operationalize signals and we operationalize this understanding of VUCA is we use future forces, which are patterns of change that are likely to disrupt today's way of doing things. And these future forces may come from innovations in technologies, policies, markets, and cultures. These future forces drive the emergence of grand challenges, which may either present themselves as barriers or opportunities for those impacted. And future forces like these, such patterns of change, challenge us to think beyond today's best practices in order to help us as innovators create the wisdom of tomorrow. Today, at the SNHU Innovation Center, we have identified 5 forces that will shape the landscape that learners and workers will navigate in 2030. So these 5 forces are human-machine collaboration. How might artificial intelligence and machine learning challenge us to develop the skills and ethics needed to work side by side in human-machine teams? Personal economies. How might the rise of digital platforms challenge people to fashion their own economic opportunities? Spectrum demographics. How might spectrum identities replace traditional demographics, enable highly personalized services, and change how people manage their reputations? Shape-shifting organizations. How might distributed computing challenge organizations to redesign themselves to maximize human value in a world undergoing rapid change? And finally, masterminds of reality. How might the Internet of Things enable us to simulate everything and challenge us to integrate simulation literacy into daily practice? Now, we do not think these are the only challenges that our future learners will face. Even as we deepen our understanding of these forces and their implications, we will continue to scan social, technological, economic, ecological, and political systems for the signals and trends that can improve our understanding of the emerging future. So now I'll just give you a little bit of more information on each of our future forces that we look at. So intelligent systems. The proliferation of intelligent systems all around the world with processing speeds that will far outpace human processing, vast stores of data that could overwhelm human minds, and globally connected sensors that bring their intelligence into the physical world. This proliferation will challenge learners, workers, and managers of organizations to develop finely honed skills in human-machine collaboration. One example of this in action among many, there was a robot at the advertising firm McCann, and they were hired as a creative director. And then the firm hosted a contest between the human creative directors and the robot in order to demonstrate the robot's competence. And I believe the robot did quite well. Distributed computing. The disruption of distributed computing, often using blockchain technologies to manage transactions, contracts, and even organizational priorities, will amplify the potential of peer-to-peer transactions. This will challenge organizations to become facilitators of such transactions in a landscape of shape-shifting organizations and its mission. One example of this in action is called Wings. It's a Kickstarter-like platform for creating decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs, with a community of token holders who vote on proposed projects, and they vote based on which projects will have the best chance of success. And the individual token holders actually earn forecast ratings based on their votes. The expansion of platform economies that build on application programming interfaces, or APIs, to enable one service to build upon another will challenge individuals to build their own personal economies by fashioning their own economic opportunities, income, and value streams. So something like this in action is a platform called Personal Tokens. This helps individuals issue their personal initial coin offerings, or ICOs, that tap into the growth of the digital currency markets, which will be key to financial success in the future. The force of international markets. The evolution of international markets alongside large-scale human migration will blur the multitude of conventional demographic and ethnic boundaries in the future. This will be challenging everyone to replace those concept demographic segments with new practices built on emerging demographic spectrums. And we'll see various innovations come from some of the poorest regions in the world. One example of this in action is a platform called Acrobatic that's built on a science-based methodology for course design. And it uses predictive analytics to deliver personalized learning experiences to students to match their learning needs. So when we're thinking about this world of 2030, what people are going to expect, they're really going to expect personalization tailored to their individuality, their individual learning needs, their individual identities, things like that. And as we also think toward 2030, the emergence of futures literacy will play a role. So in a world where rapid technological advancements intersect with global social upheaval, that's going to continue to create volatility and uncertainty. It'll challenge the world to build skills in simulating urgent futures and their solutions. Hence, masterminds of reality. So being able to think in terms of simulations, that gaming mindset that we see a lot of people, a lot of younger people especially bring to the table, that's going to become more and more important. One example of this you might be familiar with is called Spatial OS. It's a cloud computing service for building virtual worlds, including actual cities and biological ecosystems. It was acquired by Google, and it's offered as an open system. It demonstrates the practical link between gameplay and simulation and game design and real systems modeling. So we're going to see all those things come into convergence. So we're thinking about the future. And one thing we have to bear in mind about this kind of futures thinking that we take on at the Innovation Center, that we take on into our practice as innovators, is that every useful statement about the future seems a little ridiculous at first, and it is a big shift in our thinking. But I would invite you to think about examples of some of the most innovative companies out there, things like Netflix or Apple. At first, when we heard about the concepts for those companies, I bet some of us were a bit skeptical and a bit incredulous. So that's just something worth bearing in mind, that at first the future sounds ridiculous until it becomes real. So as I close, there are a couple of things I'd like for you to bear in mind as we continue our discussion together. As educators, as innovators, as leaders, we're all together in this game of hope. I'm here doing what I'm doing, and I imagine you're also doing what you're doing in order to try and make the world a better place. Given the current state of the world, hope is more important than ever. So let's all do what we can to innovate the best possible learning solutions, to expand access to learning for all, and keep our young people hopeful. And finally, the work we do in our various sectors is really tough, but it's more important than ever. I think we've got to keep hope in mind, but we've also got to keep remembering the following as we innovate. As we think ahead to that learner of 2030, those 9 to 10-year-olds, where they're at today, they are living in the epitome of a VUCA world, I think we can all agree. Volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. This is all very, very relevant. And there's quite a good chance that this young person's future job or career doesn't exist yet. And it's the choice we make today as leaders, innovators, educators to actively engage with those signals from the future that are here today that will help us innovate learning experiences that maximize the chance of success for all. Thank you so much for allowing me to share, and I'm very excited to be part of our panel discussion. Thank you.